Hey there, NASCAR fans! Have you got your copy of the latest edition of NASCAR Pole Position Print Magazine? If not, there's no better time than now to subscribe at polepositionmag.com. NASCAR Pole Position is the only print magazine covering NASCAR. Officially licensed by NASCAR, NASCAR Pole Position Magazine is published throughout the NASCAR season, and each edition is an instant collector's item, packed with great feature stories and photography. The magazine is even mailed to you in a poly bag for those who love to collect NASCAR memorabilia. At polepositionmag.com, you can even find past issues available to purchase. Get your subscription to NASCAR Pole Position and get great NASCAR content delivered straight to your mailbox throughout the season. Learn more at polepositionmag.com. That's polepositionmag.com.
Hey y'all, Rick Houston here, and I want to tell you about my new show, the Moonshine and Motorsports Racing Podcast. I've partnered up with the state of North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to help uncover the history behind moonshining mountain boys, professional wheelmen, and the backwoods and city lights of the Tar Heel State. In the first episode, I sat down with Winston Kelly at the NASCAR Hall of Fame for a little behind-the-scenes gossip about Junior Johnson's engineering skills.
He's got two things in his hand, pipe wrench and channel lock pliers, and they weren't new. They had been around the block a time or two.
Wasn't the first steel they built, I bet.
No. I think the pliers had been red before, but paint had worn off.
And in the second episode, I talked to a professional hillbilly, a.k.a. Dr. Daniel Pierce of UNC Asheville, to find out the real history of moonshiners and their battles with the revenuers.
He wrote about one of his experience of trying to chase down this bootlegger in this souped up car, and he complained that the government gave him these piece of crap, cheapo cars, and that were really no match, but he thought he was doing pretty good, and then the guy just hits it and just takes off and practically disappear. But then the guy makes a bootleg turn and comes back towards him. And as he said, it was a game of chicken, and I was the chicken. And so he ran off the road. And actually, he was the guy who caught Junior Johnson at his daddy's steel when Junior got tangled up in a barbed wire fence.
So check out the Moonshine and Motorsports Racing Podcast, available on YouTube, dailydownforce.com, and all of your favorite podcasting platforms. And be sure to check out my regular show on NASCAR history, the Scene Vault Podcast.
Eric Estep here. One of my favorite parts of being a NASCAR fan is collecting diecasts. It's how I got my start on YouTube, actually. To me, a room is not complete until it features shelves of NASCAR diecast cars. It's as good a time as ever to continue your collection or begin an all-new one by pre-ordering your favorite driver's 2022 next-gen diecast at lionelracing.com or at any authorized Lionel retailer. Lionel is the official diecast of NASCAR, and don't miss Lionel Racing's NASCAR Authentics diecasts at a Walmart or Target near you. Not only is Lionel the official diecast of NASCAR, but they're also official supporters of the Out of the Groove podcast network. So what are you waiting for? Head to lionelracing.com to order your favorite driver's 2022 diecast.
Welcome to Made in Level Cross, presented by Pristine Auction. I'm Thad Mofftt.
And I'm Rowland George.
And today we're going to kick things off by telling you a little bit about ourselves, a little bit about what is Made in Level Cross.
I'm really excited, Thad. I think this is going to be probably the number one podcast in the world by this time next year. So, no pressure on us. So. We're going to do right by your fans and your family and America. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it too. Just to give people kind of an inside look of like everything, all the history in Level Cross, and not only that, but what's currently going on there and what's currently going on in my life. And as we move forward, just give people kind of behind the scenes look at what life in Level Cross is like.
Yeah. Speaking of your life, I think you got a lot going on next year, and we'll dive a little bit into that later on. But let's dive into you real quick, because some people may not know who you are. They may be just tuning in on this podcast, saying Thad Mofftt. They may think it's like a NASCAR podcast, but let's tell everyone who Thad Mofftt is, and explore the inner workings of what a Thad Mofftt is as well.
Yeah. So, of course, I'm Thad Mofftt, grandson of Richard Petty. Rebecca and Brian are my parents. Rebecca is Richard's youngest daughter. And then my dad, Brian, was CEO of the race team for a long time and worked for the race team for 30 plus years. And now he's at Petty's garage running and operating that day to day. So still a lot going on in level cross, even though they're not racing 4 or 5 cup teams out of there like they once were. It's still a busy place and a lot going on there. But as far as me, I mean, I wasn't always a race car driver. So about when I turned 8, we were in Daytona and I was with my grandpa walking in pit road, and Eric Amarola had just run good in the 500. He was driving for us at the time. And I was like, man, that could be me one day. And grandpa was like, sure it could, buddy. And then we came home, we got some quarter midgets, didn't race for a couple years. Grandma got sick. So we kind of ran a little bit when we could. And then by the time I started racing full time, I had outgrown the quarter midgets. So I started racing go-karts, did that for a little while. And then at 14, got in a late model for the first time. And at 15, I started racing late models all over the Southeast and had some success early in the late model stuff. So we jumped into the ARCA stuff. Then ran there for a couple of years. And then this past year, we did some TA2 stuff. And the year before, we did a couple of truck races here and there and some ARCA stuff. So outside of the racing stuff, I would consider myself more of like a adrenaline junkie. I played a lot of sports growing up. I was big into water sports and snowboarding and football, basketball, baseball, pretty much all stick and ball stuff. And also like to hang out with my family, big family driven guy, and hang out with my dog Knox. So, I mean, everything my entire life has kind of been family driven. We go to church together, we go eat together. Like this Sunday, we're going all to hang out at mom and dad's house and eat dinner. So, I mean, that's just what we do. We work together. We pretty much do everything with each other. So everything I've done is kind of what great grandpa started in 1949 there in level cross, a big family atmosphere. Everybody that came to work at Petty's garage felt like they were part of the family, or Petty Enterprises or Petty Engineering or Richard Petty Motorsports. No matter what it was called, it was always a family. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've kind of carried into my life as I grow up, and just keep it kind of family centered. And yeah.
I think you nailed it right on the head. The family. I mean, every time I call you, you seem to be out to dinner with the family. I hear Brian and your brother Harrison and Lauren. So I think truer words have never been spoken. Moffitts and Petty's family through and through. I think it's interesting though. I wasn't aware that Eric Almirola, hopefully we can get him on the podcast since he's retiring. He's got to be your inspiration now. I'm gonna start telling people that it was because of Eric Almirola that Thad decided to become a race car driver.
Well, it was
not be entirely true.
I always kind of like grew up at the racetrack. So like from my entire life, I was at the track at like a couple months old, right? But my entire life, I just went to the racetrack and that's what I did. And it took me until I was like 8 or 9 years old to realize, dude, that could be me.
Yeah.
Like growing up, I mean, Harrison Burton, Todd Gilliland, like all those kids, we went to MRO together at the racetrack. And I mean, like we just rode our bikes around and our scooters and played basketball. Like I don't even remember watching the races when I was a kid. Like I could hear the cars going around the track, but it wasn't something that we really sat down and did.
Right.
And then I think like by the time I got like 8 or 9, I was like, you mean I can do that?
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
You definitely grew up in the right family if you wanted to be a race car driver. And, what I thought was interesting was, when I first met you, I thought there'd be more Petty family members driving, and it turns out, you're the guy, man. I mean, Harrison did a little bit of driving, but there's really nobody else, your cousins or anybody else, that really took up that mantle and decided to race. And I think that's really cool. I mean, there's a little bit of pressure on you for next year, I'm sure, but the fact that you're carrying that torch, that your Uncle Kyle, last time he was on track was over 10 years ago, and you're kind of honoring Adam Petty's legacy. So it's neat. It's really neat.
Yeah, I think it's really cool for me to be able to carry on the opportunity to keep the Petty name in the sport, right? I mean, we always joke at family Christmas, you grew up in our family, you either played football or you raced cars. Because like my cousins Kyle and Richard and Harrison, they all went to college and played football in college, and me and Adam and Austin, and we all raced cars. So it was like all the men in our family either did one or the other. So for me to be kind of passed the torch as the next driver in the family is really cool. People always ask about like the big pressure thing, and it's like, I mean, my whole life has been the same situation. Like nothing's ever changed, right? It's like nothing's ever not been pressure. So I guess I just kind of got used to it. I don't really feel like it's a whole lot of pressure carrying on the family name, because I know they'll be proud of me no matter what. I mean, it's just like we were talking about, the family atmosphere that you get. I mean, I'm not saying that I won't get in trouble by Grandpa, because he's definitely pointed the finger at me a few times in my racing career. But he, at the end of the day, I think no matter what, he's going to be proud of me. So it's just really neat for me to get the opportunity to kind of carry on that legacy.
I agree, for sure. Well, I'll say a little bit about me, because I'm not as interesting as you, Thad, but, very honored to be part of your podcast here, share the co-host duties with you. So, I'm Rowland. I grew up in New Jersey. My grandfather was a Ford dealer. And so I grew up in a Ford family, grew up near a junkyard. In fact, I think we still have the largest junkyard in the county in New Jersey that's still active. But, automotive things, they come naturally with my family. And, grew up, went to college for aviation, joined the Navy, did that for a while. And then I got back in the automotive space. And then, I got the most magical phone call in the world from your Uncle Steven, asking if I wanted to work at Petty's Garage. And for people who aren't aware, so Petty's Garage, that is an active shop. We do high performance builds, restorations, whatever you can think about doing to your car, whether it's a 1965 Mustang or a 2020 Challenger Scat Pack, you're having it done at the same place where Richard Petty's race cars were built. It's the most hallowed ground in the racing world, in my opinion. So it's really cool to be working there alongside Thad. I mean, Thad, you work there every day, almost every day, unless you're doing something in the racing world or doing some kind of charity event. Thad's going away at it, changing oil, putting Lear bed covers on trucks, doing brake jobs. I've seen you do it all. Exhaust systems, that's your favorite, right? You love doing
Here lately, I've been mounting and dismounting a lot of tires, and I don't really care for that tire.
Yeah. I think you like it, though.
Just like going back to, man, just being in Level Cross and being part of what's happening there is just like, I'm willing to do whatever there, because I want that place to stay around for my kids to see. Because I played hide and seek in that building my whole childhood, right? And they were racing out of there until I turned 8 or 9, yeah. Sure. And so they were racing out of there, and we'd go around and pick up lug nuts from where they do pit practice out back, and it was like a game. So I mean, I'll do whatever it takes to keep that place going, and keep it around for generations to come. I mean, it's the same thing that Grandpa did to keep it around for us to come. And when they passed me the torch as the driver, I also got kind of passed the torch as, here, this is your responsibility too.
Let's get into that. I mean, level cross, like first of all, what is level cross? Is it, level cross obviously is a place, North Carolina. So why don't you why are we calling this maiden level cross?
Well, just everything that level cross means to my family. I mean, that's where we were all made. I mean, when I say that, it's in every sense, right? Like as humans, our careers all started there. I mean, we do everything there pretty much, right? So I think it's a really big part of everything that the Petty family is, right? And for great grandpa to start there in 1949, and here it is 2023 going into 2024, and we're still there operating at a larger scale than they were back in 1949, obviously. But I mean, that alone speaks volumes, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the maiden level cross thing. From what I remember, we'll have to get either your grandpa or Dale Inman on this podcast to talk about it. But I'm pretty sure that late 60s, the team started putting a decal on the back of the car, the bumper or the trunk lid said maiden level cross. And then that carried through. I've seen maiden level cross on the safety clean parts cleaners that we've had, some toolboxes here and there. So it went from a decal to now just a concept, right? We're like you said, we don't just make parts, which we still do for the garage. We don't just make parts, cool cars, swag, everything, including this podcast, is maiden level cross, and then it's much more far-reaching, right? Like you said.
Well, that's my whole point, right? I mean, all the race cars Richard Petty raced were made in level cross, and all the race cars Lee Petty raced were made in level cross, but outside of that, I mean, it's made Richard Petty who he is, right? It's made Lee Petty who he was, Dale Inman who he was, and it kind of forged us all. I think it has a lot to do with the whole family thing, right? Because if we didn't only have, if we had more than just level cross, then it would have not been as family.
Yeah, and I mean, people who come to the museum there, your Aunt Sharon runs a museum, as big of a compound that I sometimes think it is. It is small compared to the megalith race shops you see nowadays. I mean, the fact that they won all those championships out of there from 49 to 08, it's mind-boggling. I mean, it's so cool. And if you haven't been out there, you definitely need to. That's a bucket list item for any race fan. All right, Thad, before we get into your future plans and what this podcast is going to entail for our wonderful viewers, we can't do podcasts like Maiden Level Cross. We can't race. We can't do all the fun things in life without some really cool partners. And we are very, very happy to announce that our presenting sponsor for the Maiden Level Cross podcast is Pristine Auctions. Big shout out to those guys. Pristine Auctions, family owned and operated online auction. They specialize in autographed memorabilia, sports cards, coins, arts, and collectibles. And for over 20 years, they've grown from a spare bedroom to 2 facilities in Phoenix, Arizona, totaling over 60,000 square feet. By putting their customers and consigners first, Pristine has become one of the largest and most trusted auction houses in the world.
That's right, Rowland. They work directly with leading authentication companies to ensure items are 100% authentic. In addition, they have leading third-party authenticators that regularly travel to Pristine Auction to provide authentication services on site. Pristine Auction strives to operate its business in a way that is honoring to God, our family, and our customers, with a strong focus on speed, quality, and premier customer service. Their mission is to be the leading online auction for every level of collector and fan. Visit pristineauction.com and register to bid today.
Big thanks to Pristine Auction. So let's dive right into it, Thad. You got a big 2024 coming up. Share with us what you got in the pipeline here. I heard it through the grapevine that you may be going NASCAR racing next year. Can you confirm or deny this?
I can confirm it. We will be racing in a NASCAR Top 3 series next year.
You can't say anything else?
I don't know.
All
I don't
right.
think so.
We'll keep it under the wraps for now. I like the suspense. Keeps our listeners on their toes. So let me ask you this. So you had a really good rookie season. The Trans Am TA2 series. Got to meet Tony Perella with the Speed Tour. I really, until I started working at the garage and met you and followed your career in that series, I had no clue that Trans Am was that cool. You know, I grew up hearing about the Trans Am series and watching the guys like Mark Donahue and the infamous Penske Camaros, but I didn't realize it was as big as it is. And the fact that you were in the TA2 series, you did such a good job. I mean, you had a series of a thing of what, 3, 4? How many top 10s did you have?
I think 6, right? Like half the races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
kick 'em
ran.
butt.
So I think for me this year, it was more about learning, right? I mean, NASCAR's
Sure.
gone this way where they run a lot of road courses, and I was not very good at road course racing. And so I said, all right, I'm going to take a year. I'm going to run these road courses, and I'm going to learn everything I can. And we actually did it with a Scott Legacy, who used to race in the Cup Series. So he knew both sides of it, right? Like he knew the road course stuff and he knew the oval stuff. So we got ourselves with a good group, and I went and just grinded it out and learned how to road course race. And by the end of the year, we were top 10 in points. I think we ended up 7th in points and then 2nd in the Rookie of the Year standings. So overall, I would say it was a successful season, but for me, it was just about learning. And to start the year, we ran about 15th to 20th. And then by the end of the year, we ran top 5 the last 4 or 5 races. So I think it speaks volumes of how much I was able to learn this year with Scott Legacy and leaning on his group a lot, and all the data, all the real-time stuff you get to look at is very, very helpful in that TA2 series. And then big thanks to Tony Perella. I mean, that guy's awesome. He's all over the place, and everything he's done for that series is pretty cool. So
Yeah,
he's neat to be a part of.
I couldn't believe how many upcoming NASCAR drivers are in that series. How many NASCAR drivers, former or current, came down? Daniel Suarez made an appearance in the TA series. Justin Marks came down to the TA2 series, right, when you raced him in Detroit.
Yeah, he ran Nashville and Detroit, but
Yeah,
I didn't realize this either. But Tony Perella was telling me, I don't know if it was last year's 500 or the 500 the year before, but like 27 of the drivers in the Daytona 500 had ran through TA or TA2 at some point. So, I mean, I didn't know a whole lot about it either before this year. And then I went over there and they were like, yeah, Ty Gibbs ran over here. Yep. Austin Dillon ran over here. All these guys have been using this tool. And I was like, no wonder they kicked my butt on the road courses. Right?
It sharpens your skill. I mean, I saw you progress from what you said, you really didn't do too much road course racing, and you were up there. I mean, competing in the top 10, top 15. So I think it really sharpens a driver's road course skills and prepares you for the next level, whether that be NASCAR or any other series. So if you guys never have seen or know about the Trans Am series, highly recommend you check it out. They've got, the free online broadcast on YouTube. So big shout out to those guys, and they've been very instrumental in this upcoming year. And you're going to be doing a couple of races next year, right?
Yeah, I really enjoyed running those cars this year, man. They were a lot of fun to drive. They don't weigh very much. They have a big wing on the back of them. It's a wicked looking race car. So I want to try and do as much as I can because I think it is a good tool. So I'll run a handful of those races next year for sure. And along with our whatever we're going to do in NASCAR next year.
Got it. Can't wait for that announcement. But you made a few friends in Trans Am series. You and Austin Green were fighting for the rookie honors. So you definitely have a pool of guests in that series. But going forward with the podcast, I think you got a pretty stout guest lineup, right?
Yeah, I think that, just being in this sport my whole life and kind of knowing knowing almost everybody in the sport, right? I have made quite a few friends over the years. So I reach out to some of my buddies that are drivers and some of my buddies that aren't drivers, that are crew chiefs and crew members. And we'll reach out to everybody who we want to be on the show, and we'll see. We got a pretty good lineup of guests coming for you guys, and some exciting stuff coming for Maiden Level Cross.
Yeah. So with that, I think we're going to close out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, intro level episode of the Maiden Level Cross podcast. Big thanks again to Pristine Auctions for coming on board for this podcast. And I can't wait to hear what your plans are for next year, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to tell everybody, man. It's going to be exciting to get it out there in the air. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening to Maiden Level Cross today. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Maiden Level Cross, and follow me on Instagram at Thad Mofftt 46. And then X and Facebook, Thad Mofftt Racing is what you'll look up to find us. But be sure to like and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to us on, and leave us a good review.
Yeah, please do that. That's all we have to be doing today. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.